So to get things started, I now like to pass it over to Jewish Community Action's Executive Director, Karen Moratz. Karen?
Thanks, Jonathan. Hi, everyone. My name is Karen Moratz. I am JCA's Executive Director, and also, as I'm looking at the staff on the call, the person who's been on staff the longest. I've been at JCA since 2004 and have been director for about 4.5 years. And I'm really excited to welcome you. I love seeing some new faces and some faces that have been with us for a minute. But the main thing that excites me about JCA is that we really just have a tremendous staff that's doing really wonderful work with our community. So I'm going to just hang out and listen and let you spend some time getting to know them. And I think I'm introducing our organizing director, Dave Snyder.
Hi, everyone. Dave Snyder, he, him. I'm the organizing director at JCA. I have not been here as long as Karen, though I had a stint with us from 2005 to 2012, then crept over to legal aid and then came back to be the organizing director for the past 4.5 or so years. And I'm really, really proud and excited to be on the team. So my on one foot presentation for everyone is just grounding us in our theory of change and how does JCA approach our organizing. And truly, I actually could stand up on one foot and do this. I've done that before, but you know, it loses something over Zoom. But I'll just say, we approach the work not just as a series of isolated, separate issues that we work on in order to achieve this or that policy outcome. We're trying to build power and capacity and leadership for the long haul. I think in some ways this is an offering up to our community that we want to build power together. We want to give our community opportunities to act on our values publicly and collectively. And so as you hear the organizers talking about the different issue campaigns, the thing that I want to kind of add or paint onto the canvas beneath that is that every opportunity that you have to get involved is also an opportunity where you'll have a leadership development opportunity. You'll have an opportunity to connect with our partners, especially from BIPOC-led organizations and coalition partners, because we know that all these issues we work on are interconnected and deeply rooted. And we know that beyond every policy victory, there are other crises facing us, and we want to make sure that at the end of the day, every campaign leaves our community more powerful with a deeper analysis of what's going on, with deeper relationships with our allies. So when we don't just fight for tenant protection policies in a suburb, we convene people into housing teams so that they can do the work in their own communities, learn, and be involved for the long haul. And I can say that about all of our different campaigns, but you'll see it as you listen to the organizers. So, John, I switch away from my screen. Who am I passing it on to? I'm sorry.
We're going to pass it over to Aaron Burke.
Aaron Burke. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Aaron. I use he, him pronouns. I am JCA's Hennepin County housing organizer, and it's really great to see all of you tonight and to get to spend some time with you. I've been on JCA's staff for about 4 years, and I actually got involved in JCA, much like many of you have been involved or are getting involved now. As a leader, and that stemmed, I actually started volunteering on the criminal justice reform campaign after I had an experience sitting on a jury in Hennepin County for a criminal drug case involving a young Black man from North Minneapolis, and the impacts. It was my first time being so close to the criminal justice system and seeing how it functioned up close, and it stirred in me something that I didn't know was there, and called me to do justice work. And shortly after that, I found JCA, and at the time JCA was doing work, which has now turned into Sarah's campaign, which you'll hear about, but was doing work around mandatory minimums at the Capitol and sentencing guidelines reform. And so that was a really perfect way for me to impact change in a system that I found that I was complicit in, and that all of us are actually complicit in as being people who or most of us are eligible to sit on juries. So that's kind of how I got to JCA. I ended up getting a job 4 years ago here as an organizer once I decided that organizing was something that I needed to do. And I inherited the housing justice campaign in Hennepin County, which has been quite a learning curve, but has been so good. And one of the things that we've been doing over the course of 4 years is showing up across Hennepin County, both in the city of Minneapolis and in all of the suburbs, with renters and community-based groups that work with renters when rents go up and when buildings, oftentimes what we have found is that buildings will get sold to new ownership and rents go up $400, $500, $600. And a lot of tenants in some lower income buildings or lower rent buildings are actually on month-to-month leases, which is really good if you have access to capital and are mobile and have a lot of privileges. But if you are a working class person or have disabilities or other marginalized status, having a month-to-month lease can be really scary when the rent goes up $500 starting in September, or starting in October. When you hear so soon and you only need to give 30 days notice, it really can be a shock to the system, and people get displaced from places where they worship or places where they work or the transit they're used to. And so we have teams all across Hennepin County, in a lot of the suburbs and in the city in the city of Minneapolis that work to preserve what affordable housing is left and work to advocate for more affordable housing policies that will help produce more affordable housing. But one of the places where we tend to show up a lot is places where we can impact and be in fight with tenants who are fighting for their lives and for their homes. And one of the big things that we're doing right now, it's election season in the city of Minneapolis and in some of the suburbs too. But in the city of Minneapolis, there's a ballot initiative for a policy called rent stabilization. And what that would do is basically allow for the city, this is sort of the first step of two that the city would need to do, but it would allow for the city to create an ordinance. It wouldn't actually implement an ordinance right now, but it allows the opportunity to create an ordinance later, which is like a law later, that would set a cap of how much rent could go up in apartment buildings year over year. So in places like California and in Washington, they say 5% or 7% plus the cost of inflation every year is the maximum allowable amount that rent could go up every year. And so we're saying, if rents go up 3, 5, 7% every year, that makes sense. That could be, under $100 every year. And that is sometimes hard to swallow, but is manageable and reasonable. But when rents go up $400, $500, $600 year over year, that's where we see mass displacement of families, and a lot of those families who are most impacted have some marginalized status, like they're immigrants, perhaps they're undocumented immigrants, or they're communities of color, or they're disabled folks. And so we know that this is a racial and economic justice issue from that perspective, and we know that we want to show up and fight with people who are directly impacted by displacement and say that we actually want people to be stable in their homes, because that is really a key to success in life, is having a stable home. And so that's a lot of our work right now. And in this campaign for rent stabilization, one way that you can impact it right now is by signing up for canvassing shifts. We're doing phone canvassing, text banking, and there will be opportunities to do that in person in offices and also remotely in the comforts of your own homes. And so what I'm going to do is, right after I'm done talking, I'm going to put in the chat a link, and John's probably going to send it to you after this as well, where you can sign up for shifts by just filling out a quick Google form. It's really easy. And you'll be able to come help volunteer and talk to people on the phones with a training. You'll get trained and everything to help make an impact and get people to the polls in Minneapolis this year. A second thing that you can do is that we'll be hosting a house party to get more informed about what this ballot initiative, this 7 minutes was really short. So I will be, Lauren and I on staff will be doing a house party, hopefully around Sukkot, maybe a little bit after, where you can get more informed about what's going on with this campaign. And lastly, the third thing that you'll get in touch with me about is if you live in the suburbs and you want to take action locally in the suburb, we have teams all across Hennepin County that are doing this sort of work, not exactly rent stabilization, but advocating for more affordable housing. And we'd love to get you plugged into some of our suburban work if that's where you're located and that's where your home base is. So all of those things will be in the follow-up email. And also I'll put the one thing in the chat right now if you want to make sure that you have it. And I think that's my time. I'll pass it back to John. I don't remember who I'm passing it to after this.
Thank you so much, Aaron. We're going to pass it over to Jamie, who's going to talk about this work on the other side of the river.
Thanks, John. Hi, everyone. I'm really excited to see you all here this evening. My name is Jamie Cavanaugh. My pronouns are they, them, or he, him, and I'm the East Metro organizer here at JCA. So I work chiefly in St. Paul and also in the surrounding suburbs. I started in this position in November of 2019, and I had volunteered with JCA as a leader for a few years before that. I'm a transplant to Minnesota from New York City, and in the 6 years that I've lived here, I've come to really love the Twin Cities and to really love organizing with the Jewish community here. I first came to organizing through getting involved with my dad's labor union, IBEW Local 3. And as a kid, we lived in a housing cooperative that was made by and for members of his union. Growing up, I never had to worry about whether my family would be able to keep living in our apartment. My parents had a voice in the decisions that were made by the cooperative, and so did all of our neighbors. And that meant that my community had a kind of stability that I realize now is extremely rare for anyone who doesn't own their own home. That's part of what makes me really excited to work in housing justice here at JCA. I really believe that we can create a Twin Cities community where everyone has a safe and stable place to call home, but we have to do the work of building it together. Many of us know that St. Paul is a majority renter city, but that isn't the whole story. While your average St. Paulite is more likely to rent than to own their home, that likelihood gets even higher if they're a person of color. According to the most recent census data for St. Paul, 84% of Black households, 64% of Indigenous households, 62% of Latinx households, and 58% of Asian households in St. Paul rent. Among white households in St. Paul, 39% are renters. Those figures make it really clear that rights for renters are a racial justice issue. Rental housing stability disproportionately impacts people of color. It also heavily impacts many other folks who either hold marginalized identities or might find themselves in vulnerable positions when it comes to a housing search, like folks with disabilities, queer and trans people, elders, single parents, and people leaving abusive relationships or living situations. Protections for renters make it possible for all of our neighbors to feel secure in their place in St. Paul. So what we're doing right now is we are working to pass rent stabilization in St. Paul, much as Aaron and his team are doing over in Minneapolis. Minnesota state law poses substantial obstacles to passing rent stabilization policies in most places, but the St. Paul City Charter makes it possible for us to pass this policy via popular vote. So earlier this year, JCA St. Paul housing team member leaders worked alongside our partners at Housing Equity Now St. Paul to collect over 9,000 petition signatures. It's a lot of doors. We knocked a lot of doors to put rent stabilization on the St. Paul ballot this fall. And we did it. We got there. So now it's up to all of us to engage our friends and our neighbors to go out and vote yes on rent stabilization this election day. JCA's St. Paul housing team is going to be holding phone banks and canvasses and campaign briefings throughout October. Whether you're brand new to this issue or you're super informed, we have a shift where you can plug in and help, and you don't have to live in St. Paul to be part of this team. At this stage in the campaign, anyone who lives anywhere is welcome to join us and help. We're just talking to voters to get them to come out. I am going to share a survey in the chat that will allow you to let us know whether you want to participate in a phone bank, which will happen over Zoom, so there's no in-person contact, or in a canvas in person, or whether you might be interested in coming to a campaign briefing and learning more that way. So I hope you'll find something that works for you. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. I will drop the link in a minute. And I will pass it back to John.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Really appreciate that work in St. Paul and the East Metro. We're going to pass it over to Enzy.
Hey y'all, my name is Enzy Tanner. I use he, him, and his pronouns. I'm the community safety organizer here. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri, and have lived in Minneapolis for the last 15 years. I came to JCA in October. I have a very long background with thinking about community safety in criminal justice. My family members have been impacted by the criminal justice system, as well as when I was growing up, the assumption was 1 out of every 3 Black men would be dead or in jail. And that was just my reality. And so I've always been very interested in how policing and community safety impacts directly my community. As a person who remembers growing up in the mid-90s, particularly after some of the major criminal justice laws was passed. And so here at JCA, we are working on 2 major things for the community safety program, which is one, a part of the Path Moving Forward campaign. We are holding conversations known as public movement assemblies. We held the first one on Sunday of last week, I believe. And what we do in those is we have conversations about what is it that we think we need for community safety. What do we need more of? What do we need less of? And those conversations are going to be had throughout the end of this year. And I'm excited about those. The next one will be September 26th. And we will be able to drop in race to register for that. The other part of the program is the Yes for Minneapolis campaign. And the Yes for Minneapolis campaign is the campaign to change the Minneapolis City Charter, a charter amendment, which is very exciting. We are a part of a bunch of other folks who are a part of this coalition. That is very exciting. Sorry. Okay, so yes, so we've been holding info sessions for Yes for Minneapolis, and we'll continue to hold those as well as frequently asked question sessions combined together. And there are opportunities for folks if you want to get involved in the Yes for Minneapolis campaign. There's opportunities for folks to phone bake, and those are on Wednesdays. And then there's also opportunities for folks to go door knocking, which is on Sundays. I will try. My computer is not working, so I won't be able to drop things in the chat. But when I'm able to figure that out, I will drop these in the chat and I will pass it to John.
Thank you so much, Enzy. We're going to pass it now to Sarah.
Thanks, John. Since we're a little ahead of schedule, I want to let you all know now I'm going to use my full 7 minutes, so buckle up. I've got a presentation for you. I'm Sarah. It's great to see all of you. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm very proud to be the Decriminalizing Communities campaign organizer with JCA, which is a beautiful mouthful. I've been in this role for almost exactly a year now, and I actually didn't find Jewish community action until really right before I found this job. I knew of the work that JCA was doing. I knew that they existed, but I was not involved in the way that a lot of my amazing coworkers were involved before they came on staff. So it's been really amazing and also really challenging to adapt and learn the way that JCA does powerful organizing here in the Twin Cities and metro area. And I learn a lot from members like you who have been here much longer than I have. So before I start sharing my screen, I'm just going to explain for a moment what my campaign and coalition is. And then I'm going to go really in depth to one part of my campaign's work, which is what I want you to plug into tonight. So the Decriminalizing Communities Coalition was founded in 2018. Jewish Community Action was one of the founding community partners of that coalition. And this group of people, including Black Immigrant Collective, Release Minnesota 8, Coalition of Asian American Leaders, and a couple of others, came together because we had this shared understanding of the immigration enforcement and criminal justice systems as interconnected. And even more importantly than that, we saw our resistance to the violence of those systems and the path forward as needing to be just as, intersectional as the violence of these systems themselves. So that means we don't believe there can be immigrant justice without criminal justice reform, and vice versa. We know that people in our community are impacted by both of these systems, not separately, not independently. So we resist their violence together. And that is why I think you'll see the importance of the specific campaign within the campaign that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. So I'm going to share my screen because I have a lot of information and I think it's easier to follow along when you can see. So just to make sure everyone's on the same page, I'm going to be talking a lot about ICE tonight, and that means Immigration and Customs Enforcement. This is a federal law enforcement agency under the Department of Homeland Security that is actually relatively recent, although of course its predecessor had a long insidious history in our country. So ICE was founded in 2003, really in response to the 9/11 crisis. There are 3 divisions in ICE, and the one that most people think of when they hear ICE is enforcement and removal operations. So those are the ICE officers who are actually going out and arresting and detaining and eventually even deporting people. So a lot of people are unaware that ICE is here in Minnesota, and that because they're here in Minnesota, there are people who cooperate with them. And one really dangerous place that cooperation happens in Minnesota, specifically in Hennepin County, is at the sheriff's office. So there's a long history of collaboration that even an hour-long presentation would not do justice. But I just wanted to visualize for you some of the ways that the sheriff's office has over many, many years collaborated with ICE. So that includes giving them office space where they can interrogate people, sharing arrest records, holding undocumented people longer than they actually need to be held. They could be released, but they're holding them because they're aiding ICE, who wants to come and pick them up. So there are a lot of formal and informal ways that the sheriff's office has collaborated and cooperated with ICE over the years. And one thing I really want to pull out here is that since his election, Sheriff Hutchinson and his team have reported the names of over 1,000 immigrants to ICE, hundreds of whom have ended up in detention proceedings as a result. And I just want to take a second and let that sink in, that our sheriff and his team have reported the names of over 1,000 immigrants to ICE, hundreds of whom have ended up in detention proceedings. A common misconception is that collaborating with ICE is mandatory because they're a federal law enforcement agency. And I'm going to make this really black and white for a second, although the issue, of course, is not black and white. But the truth is that is not the case. Collaboration with ICE is actually voluntary. And I can go into much more detail about this in side conversations, and you can research it, but that is what our coalition knows to be true. So the ICE Out Hennepin County campaign targets the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office and the Board of Commissioners, and you can see our demands here. So the most important demands are that the Hennepin County Board create a separation ordinance, which is just a fancy way to say a sanctuary ordinance or a policy that solidifies non-compliance with ICE anywhere in our county, including the sheriff's office. And I'll let you just read the other 2 because I'm going to be focusing on the first one. We had a recent win. Our campaign had a successful meeting with the sheriff's office on July 14th of this summer. And we were told that as we know, a direct result of the organizing that we and our coalition partners have been doing. The sheriff's office had changed their procedure to discontinue almost all of their daily cooperation with ICE. And I've just attached a kind of a blurry picture of the directive that they shared with us that shows this procedure change. So to be clear, this is not the end all be all, but this is a huge win that we have been working toward for years and years now. And I don't want that to be swept under the rug. This is an act of good faith.
Yeah, I just want to see if we have any calls.
We know that this is not complete. We want policy change, not procedure change. So we want something that is written, that is set in stone, and that will outlive any single sheriff term. And right now, all this is informal procedure change. We don't want ICE to have access to county jails, and that's an issue that is not even touched in this directive. And we know that there is continued access being granted to ICE agents. And we want the sheriff's office non-compliance to be bolstered by a county-wide non-compliance policy, which is the importance, again, of a separation ordinance. So just to wrap us up, where are we now? We have had great meetings with 4 of the 7 Hennepin County commissioners. We have meetings set with 2 others, and we are still waiting on our 7th Commissioner Lundy. Our board champion right now is Commissioner Fernando, who is really passionate about the cause, about the ICE Out campaign, and is committed to working with us to create some kind of a policy that moves forward our shared vision for community safety and well-being here in Hennepin County. And every commissioner we've met with supports the campaign's objectives. So that's really exciting. We have a follow-up meeting with the sheriff's office in late September to keep negotiating on things like jail access. And we'll be finishing up all our meetings with commissioners and choosing a route forward later this month. So the action that I have to offer you all tonight is to thank your Hennepin County Commissioner, if you are a Hennepin County resident, for their support, and tell them why you believe in an ICE-free county. So I've set up some forms that are super easy to fill out, like it could take you less than 2 minutes. If you see this is the most important part, and John and I will make sure we specify this in the email we send out as well. If you see your city on this list of cities to the right, you're going to want to use link 1. That's the first thing I'm going to put in the chat. Everyone else is going to use link 2. This is important because you don't want to thank a commissioner for meeting with us, who is one of the 2 who hasn't actually met with us yet. But we do want to thank those people for agreeing to meet with us and tell them that we hope we have their support. So I know that was a lot of information in a few minutes, but I hope y'all followed along. Feel free to put any questions you have in the chat, and I'm going to stop sharing my screen and post those links, 1 first and then 2, and would really appreciate you showing your appreciation for the commissioner's support. Thanks all.
Thank you so much, Sarah. We're going to now pass it over to Brandon.
Right. I don't remember me being this far on the, like that close on the agenda, but you got it. Hey, everybody. I thought I was at 8:10. So, hey, everybody, I'm Brandon. My pronouns are he, him, and I technically am our outreach and engagement manager, but the bulk of my job revolves around our combating anti-Semitism and white nationalism campaigns. So over the last year, we have been putting together monthly 101s for people to just drop in and learn about JCA's analysis around anti-Semitism as a structural phenomenon, as well as the history and importance of understanding how anti-Semitism is a key element that is animating today's white nationalism that we see threatening not just us in the Jewish community, but every marginalized community that we see here in the United States. So our program is coming back with our monthly 101 starting on October 7th. So we'll have that offered again. We've also been doing book clubs where we're taking deeper dives into a lot of these materials, and we'll be launching one yet. Unfortunately, I don't have a date yet because I'm still putting together the curriculum for one based off of this book called Prophets of Deceit, published in 1948. We'll be taking a then and now. Sorry, I'm on my porch and there's a construction vehicle driving across, and I'm not sure if it's interrupting me. All right, great. We'll be launching our Prophets of Deceit book club probably in December. So stay posted for that. And then we have very exciting news around the work that we've been doing with 15 other organizations around the state to go and reform Minnesota's hate crime laws to make it easier for people to go and report hateful incidences that have happened to them. And earlier this week, we learned that in Hennepin County, the Hennepin County commissioners are going to be considering a measure that would take $500,000 of federal money that was from the COVID-19 hate crimes bill passed earlier this year and use it to go and create an easier system for people to within Hennepin County to go and report hateful incidents, not just things that qualify as a crime, but those hateful incidences that really make people feel threatened. But unfortunately, our legal system doesn't have a way to figure that out right now. So that's very exciting, and I'll have more information as we await for the official votes to be scheduled, so we can encourage all of the commissioners to approve these new measures. And that's all that's gone on with our white nationalism program. I encourage y'all to come to our 101s, learn a little bit more about how this is working, and as we go into next year, we'll be doing more community-based work where hopefully, knocking on wood, we'll have more opportunities to be with our neighbors again, and we would love to start doing house parties and neighborhood outreach around these things so we can go and take this outside of just these Zoom rooms and back into our neighborhoods.
Thank you so much, Brandon. I'm now going to introduce JCA's intern, AJ.
Awesome. So my name is AJ. My pronouns are they, them, and he, him. I am the social work intern. I'm at Metro State. I just started last week, so I'm still very new to JCA. But I've been participating in kind of community organizing and advocacy for just about 10 years now. I previously did an internship with the Eastside Freedom Library, working a lot on kind of the labor kind of side of things. So I'm really excited to be here at JCA, work on a couple of other campaigns. At this point, I'm still kind of floating around, but I'm really excited to dive into some of these campaigns here, and definitely see some folks around.
Thank you so much, AJ. So as you heard from all of our organizers and our staff, we are working on a lot, from housing security to community safety to immigrant protection to combating white nationalism and bolstering democracy. And the one thing that I want to say before we wrap up tonight is that, as Dave said at the beginning, the entirety of JCA's work is organizing our community. That means this work, this justice campaign, is powered by you. We've seen over the almost 26 years of organizing that the thing that wins these campaigns is organized people and organized resources. And we hope that you can support JCA in both. As a JCA member, you'll be part of a long lineage of Jews and allies who are committed and have been committed to making the world a better place and our communities here in Minnesota together. And as we all know, now is really an essential time to get involved in this work. Now is the time for Jewish organizing rooted in the values of tikkun olam and justice. So I'm going to put a link in the chat to become a member if you are not already a member. Membership at JCA means that you contribute at any amount that is meaningful to you. And it means that you're part of our community in doing this work in whatever fashion that you're able to do. So whether that's donating both resources and time, or telling 3 friends about the cool work that you're doing. Whatever you can do to support these campaigns will make a big difference in the lives of folks in our communities and our neighborhoods. So as I put that link in the chat, I also want everyone to take a moment to reflect on the many campaigns that you've heard today and answer the question, what is one action or one thing that you are really excited to do after hearing about these campaigns? I put that question in the chat as well. What are you going to take? What action are you going to take after today? So feel free to put your answer in the chat, whether it's signing up for Brandon's Antisemitism 101, getting involved in the Home to Stay campaign in Minneapolis. Tell us, what are you excited to get involved in? So we'll take a couple seconds to answer that question. And as you are answering that question, I just want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. Toda Rabbah, as we say in Hebrew. Together, we can make 5782 the year that we put our best efforts in for our campaigns for racial and economic justice in Minnesota. And that will make it truly a sweet new year. So that really concludes our program for tonight. So I just want to wish everyone a Shana Tova, a happy new year, and I'm excited to seek justice with all of you in 5782.